Welcome back to 3D animation, and today we're going to start the character design process because you're moving into how to design characters, how to rig them, how to get into skin weight mapping. There's quite a process when we're talking about creating a fully rigged character. You're going to start out with a character sheet. That's what we're looking at right here, and kind of a plan and a design. You're going to then model that character design using poly modeling with clean quads and clean geometry. Then you're going to subdivide that and you're going to sculpt it to add more detail. Then you're going to learn how to UV map and add textures to that. And then you're going to learn how to skin weight map and then how to rig. Skin weight mapping kind of tells the rig how much to pull on certain areas of the mesh. Then you're going to actually rig it with a skeleton. And then you're going to learn about forward and inverse kinematics, different ways to begin to animate that skeleton. And then you're going to actually animate it, and you're going to add things called constraints, which kind of tell joints how far, what their range of motion is. So it's quite a multi-step process. But the first step in character design is just learning how to create a character and then how to bring that kind of 2D design into Maya and use it as a template to begin to model out your character. And just kind of like best practices for how to model to begin with. Now, I know this character design sheet that I'm showing you is a biped. It's got 2 legs and 2 arms. I actually highly recommend you don't create a biped for your first character, just because animating and rigging a biped can be really challenging. You could create a snake-like character that still has a rig inside of it. You could create a character with a tail and a head and maybe 1 arm or a tentacle or something like that. Anything that's a little less realistic, then you can have more fun with it and use your imagination and come up with your own range of motion. Anytime you have something that's a biped, we look at bipeds all day long, every day. We know exactly how people walk and how they should walk. So when you create a biped, people have certain expectations in mind, and you have to kind of live up to those expectations or it just doesn't look right. I mean, you can always exaggerate movements, but at the end of the day, you still have to have 2 legs walking in motion and 2 arms doing their thing and a head turning and a waist and all these different joints. And I just think when you're starting out, learning how to rig and how to do characters, starting with a more simple character can really help you out. But just as an example, we're going to use this character named Mamu from that I found on the internet. This is what's called a classic T-pose. It's arms straight out to the sides, kind of standing straight up. It creates a T shape with the body, and it really just helps you as you start to design your pose, because you want to rig it in this T-pose, and then you'll learn how to kind of relax it and then how to pose it. So right off the bat, any character sheet or character design sheet is going to have a front view like we're seeing here, a top view looking down, and a side view. This one also has a back view, and then they kind of gave a little like 3/4 perspective view as well. But definitely, absolutely all of you need to have a front view, a top view, and a side view for your character sheets. After you create this is all on one sheet. You're going to want to split them up as separate images. So like for my case, if I close this one, I have a front view and I have a side view as well. So that's enough to get started with your character design in Maya. So once I sketch out and we review your character design and we see that front and side view, then we can start to bring them using image planes in Maya. So I have a Maya file open right now. Right off the bat, if I go to view here in any view frame, but I actually don't want to do it on a perspective view. For my front image, I want to use the front viewport, and for my side, I'll use my side viewport. So if I go to front and I make that full size, and I go to view here, and I come down to image plane, you'll notice I can import an image. And then I can go to my desktop where I have that saved, and I believe, nope, it's not in there. I'm sorry, bear with me. Oh, it's under my character modeling folder. So let me go back. There it is. So here's my front view to go in my front view. I'm going to open it, and you see right off the bat it brings that image into my front view. And if I go to my space bar, you'll see it's literally on a plane, and it's just positioned perfectly oriented to the front view. And you see I actually have an image plane object show up in my outliner. Now I'm going to go to my side view, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go to view, image plane, and import image. And this time, go to my desktop again, and go to my character design folder, if I can find it again. Jeez, where did that guy go? Oh, there it is. It was just below the fold. And there's my side view. Cool. And now if I go back to perspective, you see they actually intersect each other pretty well. I'll probably want to make a few adjustments just to make sure they're lined up a little bit better. Like I can see that my side view is a little higher than my top view. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down a little bit, just so I have a nice alignment between the two. Hey, that works out. So now I've got these two and they're ready to go, and I can start to animate a little bit, right? So I can go ahead and pop those back and use this as I'm starting to animate out my design. So first things first, I'm going to go back to that side view and I'm going to zoom in on it. And when I talk about polygonal-based modeling, I basically just mean that we're going to start with basic shapes. You could start with curves and extrude them or do some NURB stuff, but for the most part, we're going to want to do polygonal-based modeling, right? And so I'm going to just bring a cube into my space. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that down and scale it down. And I'm going to bring this way down. And I'm going to go back to my 3/4 view here. There we go. And I think there's a way I can set this so I have a little bit of a, yeah, there we go. I can make it a little bit of transparency to it. And same thing on this one. I can bring the alpha down, just so I can kind of see through it a little bit and make sure I can still see my cube as we're working through it. Okay. And actually, maybe I'll go X-ray, just so I can see it that way. And then I can bring my image planes back up. All right, not too bad. Image planes, you can do a lot in here. You can change the colors, you can change where that image is loading from, the size, all sorts of different things, right? But for right now, we're going to go ahead and, yeah, that'll do it. So now I can come back to my cube here, and I can start to scale it down and get it where I want it. Actually, this one I am going to bring back a little bit of an alpha, just so I can see through it a little bit easier. All right. And so I want to start by just making one of his feet here. So I know I'm looking at the side view of him, and then this way I'm looking at the front view. So I'm just going to start, actually, you know what? Instead of the feet, I'm going to start with the torso. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. And so I'm going to go to face mode here and choose the top and just start to expand it out and try to get this at about the width of what we need here. And try to get this guy out a little bit there as well. And then back to object mode. And this is just sort of a, you know, sometimes it can feel a little painstakingly slow, but we're just blocking this out, right? We're getting this sort of like general shape and volume of our character. In this case, I'm going to widen it out a little bit when I come to the front view there. Actually, let me get this guy alpha down just a little bit as well. There we go. And I can get the width of this where I want it. Not too bad. Maybe this bottom plane, I want to widen it out just a little bit more. And maybe I want to expand, bring that bottom plane down just a little bit. There we go. We're starting to get the general volume of his body, right? And so now maybe I'm ready to start extruding out the next part. I'm going to go ahead and click here. And I just did a Command E or Control E, and then I'm going to extrude that up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and try to, actually I'm going to bring that down just a little bit because I'm going to try to pinch that inward a little bit. So let's scale it now. And just try to get that little bit of a, on the one side over here, as you can see, I have kind of like a dip in on this side. If I go to edge mode, I can kind of bring that back out a little bit. So I can get a little kind of like dip increase on the one side. And then if I choose this face again, I come back up to face. And Command E again. And this time we'll go ahead and move it over a little bit this way. You can start to see how I'm blocking out the body, right? I'm starting to get a feel for it. And if I hit the letter 3 on my key, or the number 3 on my keyboard, this is the smooth version of it. So this whole thing's going to have to get a little bit bigger. I'm going to go back to number 1, but that's okay. Just so I can see the full polygonal shape of it. And then I'm going to keep going. Command E and extrude it up again. I'm just going to rough it out a little bit more this time instead of trying to get every little dip. This character is interesting because he doesn't really have a neck. It just goes like torso right into this big puffy head. So as I'm going up the body a little bit, I'm going to go up again. That's pretty good. And I'm going to shift that over again, just give myself some options. And then Command E again and bring it up. Maybe halfway on this one, and then scale it out. As you can see, I just kind of keep going back and forth to see how it's looking from the multiple views. Command E again. That's pretty good. And then Command E again to extrude out the next section. And this one up here, obviously I'm going to bring that in quite a bit. And one more time, Command E to get this little bit, and then Command E again. That's pretty good. And one more time. And this one I'll bring in. So I've kind of got the body at least blocked out at this point. Not too bad. And if I look at this in 3 in my preview mode, you can see I'm starting to get kind of a blobby feel for it, right? So, I've got these different polygonal areas, obviously. And, like if I go back to 1, I could start to kind of expand out some areas. I could move this little guy out a little bit more. If I'm in 3 mode, you can see how I can start to kind of match up certain zones to get the bulges where I want them. So that's pretty good. All these little areas are going to bulge in different ways. I can always rotate them a little bit too. If I don't have quite the plane that I'm looking for. Whoop, wrong mode. There we go. And you can just get all that detail. So I'm using those the live preview modes from 1 to 3. So I can kind of get these where I want them. And this is the core of polygonal-based modeling. You have a basic form, and then you've got the smooth form that you're working with. And this really allows you to kind of manipulate it and design out your character with all the little details that you want, but without having too much right off the bat where it's like overwhelming to work with. And if I bring that down a little bit, there we go. We're starting to get there. I'm starting to get the kind of volume of the body that I'm looking for. This guy's still not quite right. There we go. I'll bring that out. I think that's actually pretty awesome so far. Now, this way, obviously, I have a lot more to do, right? So maybe I just need to take the whole thing as an object and kind of widen it out a little bit. And then I would taper it back in. So, certain zones, if I go back to face mode, I can kind of grab that guy and bring him out. So you want to go between these different, to make sure, you live up to your sketch designs. Your sketches are your blueprints, and then this is the realization of those in 3D, right? So if I bring that out a little bit, I'd have to do a little more work, I think, on this belly. It's not quite right, but hopefully you're getting the idea. I'll bring the face out there, bring that one in a little bit, maybe out and up a little bit. There we go. Now we're starting to get the shape that I was looking for. And I can always scale that in a little bit. It just really allows you to rough everything out where you want it over time. And then, we'll go back to 1, and you can see this a crazy looking block guy, right? But it's still there, and if I take this off of X-ray mode so you can see it a little bit better, you can see my block character. Now, I'm also going to want to bring those legs out there, so I'm going to have to do some cutting with my edge loop tools. I'll probably come down here and do under my mesh tool, I'll do maybe insert some edge loops, give myself a few, so then I can extrude those legs out where I want them. That should work pretty well width-wise for those 2 legs. Actually, I'm going to do 2 more. Oh, I didn't get it on that one. There we go. Now this gives me some areas to extrude. So if I come back to face mode. Now with bipeds, there are some tricks. I'm only going to work on one half of the body because I could delete half of these polygons when I'm done and then mirror it if I wanted to. Now this body's pretty asymmetrical, so I probably wouldn't do that. But, you know, I could also do them at the same time, like select more than just one. Let me grab both of these. For some reason, there we go. My shift wasn't working there for a second. And I could Command E on those and start to extrude out my feet. This guy has short little stubby feet, so it makes it pretty easy to bring those down and then to just scale them a little bit. Now I'll probably want to go ahead and position them separately from each other. It's fine to extrude them out together, but then obviously they get a little bit more individualized as we go. And actually that original polygon on the other one, I probably wanted to make that a little bit bigger, so I'm going to bring that back. So this guy actually needed to be just a little bit larger. Oop, no. I just need to adjust my edge loops where I put them, but you could see how I could start to extrude out these legs, at least the right leg. And when I look at this in 3 mode, you're going to see how I'm starting to get kind of these stubby little feet that are nice and curved and ready to go. And then I could kind of adjust stuff as we go and widen out areas. There we go. There we go. Not too bad. Same thing here. If I bring that down, that's pretty close. Bring a little bit more. Widen those. The key is that you want one continuous mesh. You don't want a bunch of pieces stuck together. You don't want to have problems come down the road because you try to stitch things together. Because if I try to do this with like booleans or combining a bunch of objects, you're gonna, when you go to rig this and UV map it and skin weight map it, your body's gonna look like tinfoil. You're gonna have all these areas that don't interact properly. So it's really important that your entire character's body is one continuous mesh. Now you can stitch things together, but it's tedious work. So I just try to get people to kind of right out of the gate start to merge these things or build these things the proper way right out of the, like I said, right out of the gate. And so if I look at this, I can see that's way wider than we need it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down and then kind of move it into the position that I want on the arm. This is where the top view would come in handy because I could kind of see the width from the top. Like right now I know I've got that pretty good on the width and I can move this up a little bit. But when I come to this side, I don't really know how thick that arm is, so I'm just going to kind of guess on that. And then I'm going to Command E again and bring this out to the next part. Maybe that's like to the elbow. And bring this up and rotate it so that it's going to be easy to kind of expand into the next section. That's pretty good. That's looking pretty good. Still a little bit out of position, so I'm going to bring that back. And then Command E it again. Hopefully you're starting to get the idea of where we're going. The fingers, obviously I'm going to have to add some more subdivision there, and that's fine. But this is it. This is the introduction, right? This is how we're going to start. So I want to make sure everybody has a really solid character design because that's what you're going to do next. After you get that character sheet done, you're going to bring it in here and you're going to start to block it out. And then we're going to start to poly model it. And then we'll texture it, we'll UV map it, we'll skin weight map it, we'll rig it, we'll set IK or FK and constraints, and then you're going to animate it. So this is quite a multi-step process. Today is just an introduction to that process so you can start to understand how it's all going to unfold. So please start with your character. Check out the additional assignments that I've linked to this one that walk you through some of the do's and don'ts of your character design and how you can get them blocked out in some interesting ways, get those different views. And then you can bring it in as image planes and start to begin to poly model it and do some of this extrusion-based modeling. All right, we'll stop there for today. Please let me know if you have any questions. And as always, thanks for tuning in.